So how certain are you that some students can return to school this year?
Well, good morning, Peter. Look, I know that there's so much to be said this morning in the press in relation to schools returning. The Premier has indicated that she'll absolutely make it clear to the public this week in relation to schools and the roadmap for New South Wales. But, listening to Dr Kerry Chant, listening to the Premier and the things the Premier has said, we'll look at every opportunity to get kids back at school and a staggered approach, a COVID-safe plan. They're the sort of things that are being considered by Health, working with the Department of Education, and at some point that'll come back to Crisis Committee for us to examine and make a decision on.
Okay, but it is dependent on those higher vaccination rates, 70, 80%. If we don't achieve those figures, if we don't achieve those figures by October, then what's the point in going back to school if there's not much time left?
Well, Pete, the Premier, myself, Brad Hazzard, Dr Chant, everybody has been speaking about vaccination rates. It's clear that the pathway to freedom or a level of freedom is through vaccination. We've had a target for 6 million jabs, which we're about to hit. Then we've got a target of 70% in line with the Doherty Institute report, and then 80%. And those freedoms will be clearly articulated with the public when we release the roadmap.
Okay, but is there a chance that students still won't go to school for the rest of this year? Is there still a chance of that?
No, look, I'm confident that we will get to the 70% mark. I'm confident that we'll be able to put in place a model that works and get kids back to school. I'm confident about that.
Yeah.
But we've got to allow Dr Kerry Chant and her team to sign off on it, and let's see what that looks like.
Okay, you mentioned the Doherty Institute there. They've tried to set the record straight last night, saying you can live with hundreds of cases out there in the community. Is that justification for the measures that you've taken?
I think absolutely. The Premier has been clear about this, that we signed up to the national agreement at National Cabinet, which was influenced by the Doherty Institute report. And it clearly marks out what you can do in living with this virus. No jurisdiction in the world has been able to open up with Delta and eliminate and have zero community transaction. And look, it's an uncomfortable conversation to have with the public, where we're saying we'll see more cases, we'll see more hospitalisations, and unfortunately we'll see more deaths. But the reality is we've got to have the courage to have the conversation and then follow the plan. And my message to everybody is to get vaccinated, because vaccination is the pathway. Don't get caught up in the brand debate. Is it Pfizer? Is it AstraZeneca? Book in today to get any of those vaccinations that are available.
What is the level of deaths, the number of deaths that you are comfortable with?
Well, no one's ever comfortable with deaths, Pete. I want to see zero deaths. That's why people
acceptable then. What's the number that is acceptable in your view?
Well, I think it's very hard to ask that question of me, because I sit here. If it's my parents, if it's my grandparents, if it's someone in my family, it's unacceptable. And I've had loss in the family in Italy in relation to COVID, and it's not nice, and it's hard for families. So it's a very hard question. But if you want to put it into context, each and every year we have about 600 to 800 deaths when it comes to the flu each and every year, and we. For decades, have just allowed that to happen each and every year, and there's been no focus on that. So the reality here is that we're going to see deaths because of COVID.
Yeah.
But the best response to that is just get vaccinated.
Sure. But in terms of a number, do you have one in mind? I mean, just casting my eyes at the UK overnight, their vaccination levels are significantly higher than ours, but it's where we aspire to be. It's over 75% now, double dose, which is great work from the UK's point of view. But they're experiencing 40 deaths a day still. That's as a whole country. But in terms of the state of New South Wales, is there a number that you at least have in mind?
No, again, it's not about a number. And, I look at the data that we have at the moment, even though we've got a record high infection rate, over 800 people who've been infected yesterday. And we've had that 800 number, or 800 plus, 880 over the weekend on Saturday. So it seems to be high numbers. But then you look at the two things, hospitalisation and death, it's actually a small number in relation to what we saw last year. We saw more deaths with the Alpha strain than we have with the Delta strain. So look, let's hope we keep it in single digits, but it'll probably get to double digits. Yeah. And that's unfortunate. But the plan is there for everybody. Get vaccinated, because we know it minimises hospitalisation and it minimises deaths.
Okay,